Oh, hello. See, I did the intro where I pretend I'm surprised to see you. It's me, Greg. We're back. It's Friday. It's Lunch and Learn. We're getting ready to build some pad data platforms. We spoke a little bit about this last week. I'll give you a quick recap on what we were talking about. I think we're kind of up to the user personas area, and I want to talk a little bit more about building them because I think that's an important thing, and I think we skip it too often in the data world. Um, I've got my friend, my best friend in the whole world, ChatGPT, up here with some stuff that we went through last week. Yeah, like I said, I'll give you a quick recap, and then we'll continue on. Hopefully, we can get to the point where we can start building things today, but it will kind of depend on how much I waffle. If you've got any contributions or you've got any questions or whatever, feel free to throw them in the chat in the Teams meeting, or yeah, pop your hand up or come off mute or whatever you want to do. It's an open session. We can just do whatever we want. It's Friday, man. It's easy day. It's casual day. It's casual Friday. I hope you're wearing shorts or something that is exposing your legs because it's starting to get warm. It's not a bad day here in Melbourne, actually. It's pretty good. Right, let's go. So, to give you a quick recap, so what we were doing is we're building a data platform, and it's a little bit meta, but we're building a data platform for a company that builds data platforms. The reason why I did this is because I know that this kind of business pretty well because this is what I do for a living, and I have a company that builds data platforms, and so I wanted to do something that I'm sure that I was familiar with and that I could talk about the issues surrounding this relatively well. Um, we gave ChatGPT some things because we're going to use ChatGPT to generate a lot of the stuff for us. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think this is more to prompt talking about some of the considerations that we should have as we get to building a data platform. And we're talking about a data platform, not just for analytics, but also for other things, right? So it could be for app integration, it could be for other stuff, whatever we want to do. So we need to consider a few different areas, and sometimes these things go beyond the idea of just your analytics platform, which I think we know and love it, and we know pretty well as kind of analytics people. Um, we gave it some processes. So I gave a big list of processes to begin with, and this was the processes up here. So we created a consolidated list of processes. This company, it does requirement gathering, stakeholder communication, and user experience, right? So there's this kind of discovery, kind of requirementsy piece that this company does. It does data discovery, profiling, governance, and retention type activities. It does architecture, design, integration, and interoperability type activities. It does development, it does testing, it does deployment and chain management type activities. It does monitoring and maintenance. It does training and support. It does security compliance type activities. It does budgeting, and it does documentation. And these are the kind of processes that our organization that we're building for does for other people. Okay. Based on this, we've got some basic. We said, ChatGPT came up with these basic needs. We need to be able to manage our client data. We need to be able to do project management. We need to be able to do financial management. We need to have a knowledge base of some kind. We need to do collaboration and communication on some kind of Teams style tool. We need reporting and analytics, and we need business development. And then we mapped it to our list. And then what I did was I came up with a list of tools and said, here's the tools that I want to use for the different areas. So for project management, we're going to use Microsoft Project and Azure DevOps. For client data, we're going to use Dynamics CRM. For finance management, we're going to use Xero, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, we mapped the tools to the different areas to make sure that kind of ChatGPT had it kind of mapped and that we hadn't missed anything. So there wasn't any tool gaps in our tool layer because I spoke briefly about this. We're thinking about it from an artifact layer. So what are the artifacts? What are the tools that we need? And then what are the activities? So activities, artifacts, and tools for like a value stream matrix type approach. I'll find that book as well, which I mentioned last week, but I haven't. I didn't give it to you guys. So that's kind of where we're at. And then I said, well, let's create some user personas for this company. And so how should we approach it? And it says, well, we should do some research. We should talk to our users. Obviously, we can't do that because this is a fictional company, but we're going to make some stuff up. We're going to do a little bit of segmentation based on grouping those users based on their roles and responsibilities, the types of technology they use, their pain points and needs. And then we're going to create personas. So user personas are becoming more and more important to data people. And this is because as we go through this kind of journey of learning about, oh, data, yeah, let's do data and analytics. Let's, I like spreadsheets, I can do that. You find pretty quickly that actually this whole area is actually all about people, right? It's all about people's understanding of information. It's about how they interpret different things. It's about how they communicate their requirements to you. It's about how they analyze their own businesses. It's about how they collaborate with each other. There's all these stuff in the data world that it's associated with people. And, data leaders struggle with this area. And that's because they usually come from a technology or finance background. And not to be too generalist, but technology and finance people are typically not great people. So, so there's an issue, broadly speaking, in the industry around the way that technology and finance, being data people, talk to their other users. Data people, they like to sit down and they do data very well, but we need to get out there. So one of the ways that we can encourage people to learn more and think more about the people side of data is to build user archetypes or personas, user personas. And this is something that we do in marketing, right? So marketing people build personas all the time. And you need to do internal marketing for data so that you can get budget to do your cool machine learning model or your AI stuff or whatever you want to do, or your analytics project or your reporting. You will not get budget unless you can market the value of that project within the organization. To be able to market the value of the project, you need to be able to say, well, this is really good for the CEO or whatever our user archetype is, because here is the benefits of this data project to that person. Here is the benefits of the data project to this operations team. Here is the benefits of this data project to whoever you're trying to market to. And so I can tell you that large organizations are starting to build these user archetypes as a part of their data platforms so that they can build, so that they don't waste money on stuff they don't need, and they can build to particular needs of users. So to create a persona, we have this kind of, and it's pretty standard. You probably will have seen them in the past. You have this pretty standard way of doing it. You have their name and you have their role, you have demographics about them, what their age is, and you literally make up a person and you give them a name. You call them Susan or David or whatever. And then while you're designing your solution, you say, hey, I think Susan would like this, or oh, no, I think David wouldn't like it for this reason, right? You can go that far. You don't have to, but that's a good way to do it. So you're giving this kind of persona around a set of a person in a role of a particular demographic who has particular goals, motivations, pain points. The way they use technology is captured. What they kind of do in their day-to-day life is captured. And you even give them a little quote that encapsulates their perspective. So this is what we're trying to do here. So before we even get into building data platforms and going and getting data and doing data engineering and doing stuff, we want to have a really clear idea of who we're building this stuff for, so that we can understand the kinds of questions that they might be asking, if it's a analytics use case, or the type of things they might want to be updating and changing if it's a application integration use case. Sorry, just changing some stuff. Okay. So we build our personas, we validate them, we refine them. We can do some visualization. You create a nice nice PowerPoint with a nice picture of a fictional person. Use some AI. We could do this, and we'll probably do at least one of them. Okay, so here's some example personas that they created as well, and we briefly looked at these last week. So we've got our project manager called Organized Olivia. I love how it gives it not just a noun, but also an adjective. Her role is to oversee client projects. Her goals are to ensure that the projects are delivered on time and within budget. Her pain points is that she's always dealing with multiple projects. She needs to coordinate those projects with different teams. Her technology usage is going to be project and Azure DevOps, because that's what she's using day to day. Probably would add in some kind of team collaboration tool there, Teams, email, all that kind of stuff she's going to be using in her day to day thing. And her quote is, I need a clear view of all the projects at any given time. So she's a project manager, but she's managing almost a program of work. So that gives you an idea of what it's like to be a project manager within a consulting organization. You don't just get one project. Like project managers in large enterprise organizations often just get one project, and they're like, you're the project manager for that project. In a consulting environment, you get 10 small projects that you have to juggle and manage and blah. So it's a different environment. We've got consultants, there's analytical Alex, we've got finance manager, which is budgeting Bella. So I'm going to build out some more personas for our organization and see what we can do. And yeah, we're just going to use ChatGPT to do that. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me know if you've done this before as well, if you've done anything like this in your data platform. Be very interested to see who's doing this stuff. Cool. Let's make some more personas. Tailored personas for our. Now, before I actually make personas, I'm asking you to give me a bit of a list of what areas we should cover first to get it kind of to structure it a little bit. Let's see what it says. Do I have my zooming? Let's do some zooming. Creating detailed personas involves a mix of demographic, psychographic, and behavioral information. This is fun to use ChatGPT for this as well. It's encapsulate the typical users in your consulting company. Here's a more comprehensive list of the areas we should cover. Okay, yeah, I know the list of what I should do. So it's talking about. Did I ask that question wrong? I think I might have. What areas should we cover? What areas should we cover in the user persona? All right, that's actually good. I was going to do this bit later, but I asked the question wrong. Okay. What? Okay, now I'm a bit more clear. I was really talking about areas of the business. Okay, here we go. This is what we wanted. We wanted areas of the business that we could create a persona for. So we've got a client engagement type personas. There's the executive and the end user. We've got the project manager persona. We've got the technical lead persona, which is great because that's irrelevant. We've got a sales representative persona. We've got a marketing person persona. We've got a BI consultant type persona. We've got a data engineer type persona. These are great. A support specialist type person, a trainer, a finance person, a HR person, a product manager, and a UX UI design, some IT people, and some executives. I think this is a great list. I don't want to make it any bigger than this. That's way too many personas. I probably won't create all of these personas right now, but I will do this during the week so that we have the complete list by next week. But we will go through the process of maybe creating one or two just so you can kind of see how these things kind of do. So what we'll do is we'll create the BI consultant and the data engineer. I think that's pretty relevant. We'll create maybe this technical lead persona. We'll create maybe a client executive, like a sales type persona, and we'll create a product manager persona. Okay, so we'll do a couple of personas. All right, so let's create some of these using the format from before. Oh my God, my typing's horrible. Let's start with a BI consultant. Do I want to add any? So I could enrich this. This is my opportunity to enrich this if I want to. What are some of the pain points I want to cover in as a BI consultant? Consultants are often dealing with unclear requirements, difficult source systems, and poor quality data, which I think is typical of our experience as BI consultants. Jordan Taylor, age 30, bachelor's degree in computer science with certifications in data analysis and Microsoft Power BI. Very nice. Interesting. They said bachelor's degree in computer science. I wonder, is computer science even a thing anymore, or is everybody specialized? I think hasn't everybody specialized? Every resume I look at, everyone's got a master's in data science or something. Does anyone do just generalized computer science? Hands up if you're 30 and you did a degree in computer science. Maybe don't have, maybe let me know in the chat if you're 30 or under and you did a degree in computer science generally. I'm sure I reckon people just do have specialized roles, surely. All right. Um, oh yeah, Shell still exists according to Shelley. She's founded at Swinburne, local university here. All right, demographics. Lives in an urban area, flexible work environment that includes remote work and offsite visits. That sounds family, single, but and highly career focused. Go Jordan. Um, are comfortable with the latest BI technologies, cloud services, and data integration tools. Their goals are to deliver insightful and actionable Power BI reports and dashboards. They want to understand client needs, business processes deeply to provide tailored BI solutions and continuous learning to stay ahead of the field in data analytics and business intelligence. They often receive unclear or revolving requirements from customers, making it difficult. They regularly encounter source systems with complex data structures. They frequently deal with poor quality data, requiring significant time investment in data cleaning and validation. Their day-to-day responsibilities are engaging with the clients to refine their reporting requirements, the designing and developing stuff. They are ensuring data accuracy and integrity. What do they need? They need tools for flexible data modeling. So this is a much more comprehensive persona now. You see, it's got the needs and their values. It's not just like that basic one. So we need to ensure they've got tools, ensure they've got efficient collaboration platform for seamless communications, advanced data cleansing and transformation tools that can handle large data sets, access to ongoing training and up-to-date materials. They value clear communication. They appreciate the tools and processes that streamline their workflow. They seek opportunities for professional growth. They need to turn complex data into clear insights. I'm often working with less than perfect data and systems. I need to find a balance between the ideal and the practical. Pretty good quote. So does that describe your typical BI consultant, do you reckon? I mean, that's pretty good from my perspective. That's feels right. Feels right. Feels good. It's good enough, right? It's good enough for us to be able to I can build things for this person now. So if I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't think we can just focus on a single persona so that we can kind of progress things so that you're not having me sitting here building personas all day. So let's think about what Jordan might want in terms of reporting to be able to do their work, right? So if Jordan is working as a BI consultant, then I'm going to ask ChatGPT this in a second, but I'm going to speculate first so that we can at least have some humans doing some of the thinking as well. If I'm working as a BI consultant, what do I need to know? I'm interested in my timesheets, how much time I've done, what my utilization rate is. You know, am I actually doing enough work? Am I going to have a bad day when it comes around to performance reviews? I'm probably concerned around that type of stuff. What else am I concerned about? I'm concerned about probably how much annual leave and stuff I've got. So there's all this personal type reporting that you could potentially do for Jordan. Let me know if you've got any other ideas. I'm going to ask ChatGPT for some. What else might they think they need? It's going to mostly be around that operational delivery side of stuff. So maybe project burn down type reporting for, you know, like how much of the project, how many hours are left in the project for me to be able to consume. So there's a little bit around there. What else would I put in there? We've already covered kind of HR, annual leave type stuff. Pay cycle, maybe. So when's the next payday? Countdown to that payday. That'd be interesting. All right, let's see what ChatGPT thinks. What did everybody say? Steve, I did a CS Masters when I was 30, but that was a long time ago. Yeah, that doesn't count, right? Because I reckon a long time ago people were doing computer science, but now I don't know. What is Learn industry standard labs. Choose a specializing to major in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, data science, games development, software development, or Internet of Things. Right. So they have it's a Bachelor of Computer Science with a major in a particular area. I guess that makes sense. Okay. So we're going to build some data platform solutions for Jordan. Okay. We are planning to build data platform for Jordan to have better insight to their work. I've decided Jordan is non-gender specific as well. Since it's a non-gender specific name, we can do that. All right. What are some of the to for reporting they might need in their day-to-day work? So it might be hard to see, but I've written, we are planning to build a data platform for Jordan to have better insight into their work. What are some of the things Jordan might like to analyze or reporting they might need in their day-to-day work? See what old Chatto has to say. Okay, for a BI consultant like Jordan, who grapples with various data challenges, a robust data platform can provide powerful insights into their work. Here are some key analytics and reporting areas that could significantly enhance Jordan's day-to-day experience. Time tracking, we covered that. Project progress, yes, so far so good. Data health, interesting. Data health, as a you would potentially build that for an internal customer, but I don't know if yeah, I'm 50-50 on that. Source system analysis, yeah, so it's trying to come up with like reports that are associated with those pain points that I mentioned earlier. Reports that identify and categorize the complexity of different source systems and the frequency of data extraction issues. Yeah, it's a bit dodgy. I like the idea of data quality metrics, but I don't know if they're right. Client communication reports, tracking the frequency and types of interactions with clients to identify the patterns and improve client management. Yeah, okay, that's another interesting one. Tough to report on. Frequency and type of interaction with clients. That's like a CRM style reporting. So that is a little, you could start tracking, I guess, in your CRM. You could track your client activities, right? So you go, now, would you do this operationally? I know sales are definitely going to be like, oh, I rang them this day and then I followed up and then we had a meeting and then blah, 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 blah. And then this happened and that happened. And then that opportunity turned into an engagement, right? That's that kind of client communication reporting that you want to see so that you can see that your salespeople are interacting with the client. So question, would you do a similar style of reporting for on an operations delivery perspective? Would you track that stuff in a CRM? We don't do it at the moment, but should we? Is that something some other people do? Oh my goodness. I don't know if you'd want to. I'd say it feels like overkill. Change requirement logs. I think definitely requirement tracking is an interesting one. Whether you could report nicely on it, but you do want to be able to generate like a good scope. And then you want to be able to track the changes to that scope as you go through. So that's not really like a data, like a new quantitative type report where you're looking at numbers. There is some qualitative reporting you could do potentially over that though, where you say, well, here's my scope and here's the changes as it was at the beginning, and then here's how it's changed over time. And then maybe you can put some quantitative analysis around that, like how many hours the project had versus, oh yeah, I can kind of see how you could potentially use that. Performance analytics, task efficiency metrics, ooh, insights into the time taken for recurring tasks, such as ETL processes and report generation. Wow, that'd be really advanced. If you could say, oh, I built a data extract script and it took me 3 hours, but my expected time to build a data extract script is actually 2 hours and 30 minutes. and therefore that's an issue. And then your boss like says, "Hey, I noticed that." Oh no, you call your boss over and go, "Hey, this took me 3 hours instead of 2 hours and 30 minutes. There might be a problem with the process." I don't know. Is that? Oh, I don't know if I do task efficiency metrics. Ooh, that's tough too. Okay. Performance trend analysis, longitudinal data showcasing trends in Jordan's work efficiency, common bottlenecks, areas of improvement over time. If you're going to do, I think performance trend, the only thing you might do is track. Well, that wouldn't be for Jordan as a user though. That'd be for like someone else, like a manager or a HR person, to see Jordan's performance over time, wouldn't it? I guess Jordan would be interested in knowing what their performance is like. Common bottlenecks. How would you do that? This all comes down to that task tracking, I guess. If you had it at that lowest level where you were tracking every single task, you could do this kind of analysis, I guess, couldn't you? Man, that's crazy though. That feels like a lot. All right. What else are some ideas? Learning and development. Yeah, that's pretty good. Skill advancements. I like the idea of a skills kind of dashboard, particularly where you've got requirements for certifications. There's a few certifications needed in this game. Certification and training reports. Yeah. So I've done training reports in the past for organizations as well, where there's compliance metrics, training compliance. So you have the whole team and then who's completed their compliance training and who doesn't. That's pretty common kind of style of reporting. So you could have an individual my training style dashboard. I'll pick and choose out of these, and then we'll see if we can come up with some artifacts. So this is where we start to get into what are the actual artifacts we're going to build, and then we'll start talking about what the data platform needs to be. Finance and operation, billing and revenue, yes. Resource allocation, how resources including time, software licenses, and other tools are allocated across projects, probably no. That's a no from me. Job satisfaction survey. So you could have your job satisfaction. If you're doing job satisfaction though, are you going to be tracking your own job satisfaction over time? I don't know. It probably form part of your I guess it'd form part of your thinking. You can watch your job satisfaction number decline as the years go on, and then be like, well, and then put a little. You could have a target line. This is where I'm leaving. If my job satisfaction goes below here, and then it's up to your boss to try and make sure it stays above there. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Uh, achievement and recognition tracking. I think that's cool too. So a lot of this stuff, if we consolidated this into what Jordan's trying to do, there's a lot of like personal, like where I'm up to in my work kind of reporting, and then there are more like performancey related reporting are the two kind of themes. I'm going to ask it to synthesize this for some themes. Let's now I'm a step that I'm skipping here is asking it to review it and make it better and all this kind of stuff. It's because I'm kind of making it up like this stuff. It's just making up some stuff for us for it to generate some conversation. It doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not trying to build like a sample data platform like as a product or anything. Let's synthesize this list and see what reporting themes emerge. Okay. So Jordan needs reporting on project and task management, data quality and integration, client relationship management, performance and outcome analytics. Man, there's a lot of them. Professional development, finance, personal satisfaction, and growth. Okay, that's cool. I like it. So we can build data platforms that target particular areas of this. We can talk about project and task management, which is probably the one we'll choose because it's a bit more straightforward. But we could definitely start to think about, if we were to build like a complete analytics product for this person, then it might include something that involves a little bit of all of these. It'd be interesting to map this back to the tools and see if we are capturing the data that we need. Let's try that.
So this is something that you potentially, like, I'm doing it in 2 seconds here with ChatGPT, but you would potentially do this at the start of your engagement when you're talking to people about their needs. Is that then you need to we go through this process of like doing gap analysis around what data is available versus what they've asked for, right? And sometimes people come to you with like, "Hey, it's all here, ready to go, and we want this," and it directly lines up with this data set. And sometimes they're like, we're not really sure, and you need to do a bit more of this type of activity where we're understanding the users' personas, we're understanding the tools and artifacts and processes and all that kind of stuff to give us a bit more insight. So anyway, we're just going to get ChatGPT to generate it. I've asked it to map it back to our tools. Are we capturing the data we need? I guess ChatGPT will just hallucinate whether it thinks it's capturing it or not. Or is there any gaps in our tools to say, well, we can't really get, I don't know, professional development. We haven't really spoken about a professional development tool, for example. So it'd be interesting to see what it says. So for project and task management, we can pull data out of project and Azure DevOps. That's fairly thing. Data quality and integration, it says Dynamics CRM. It can track data quality issues related to client data. It does not cover all the data integration challenges. I don't know. I reckon it's missed the mark here. Additional tools or custom solutions might be necessary to monitor data health across different systems. I guarantee it will be. I don't think you would capture in your CRM your data quality, right? No way. Client relationship management, yes, you would definitely use the CRM for that. Performance and outcomes. Performance dashboards by integrating data from Azure DevOps and other sources. Yeah, initial data sources may be required to get a comprehensive view. Again, I think that's stretching it. Professional development out of Teams and SharePoint. Sharing learning materials and tracking certification progress. You might need a more dedicated learning management system to track professional development activities. So when I've done this kind of reporting in the past, I will have used a learning management system. And so you're just pulling it out of that system. Can we hack this though? I've got a certification profile. Could we keep that? I guess you could just keep a basic certification profile in like SharePoint to begin with, and then go from there. I really like this type of analysis for this kind of thinking, because you go, oh, actually, we don't capture that. How could we do this in the short term just to fill the gap so that we can get a little bit of reporting around professional development? Like this is something that I actually could use in our business. Like we don't have a learning management system. The team requires certifications. It is tracked to a certain point in the partner portal, because everybody needs to be registered for their certifications. So we can download data out of the partner portal to say, the Microsoft partner portal, to say, oh, well, here's the list of people who are officially recognized as having their certification. So there's one potential data source, but we potentially, because that only covers specifically Microsoft certifications, right? And what you probably want to do is track other people, like other certifications as well. So Databricks, Azure, Amazon, there's all sorts of AWS, Google Cloud. You've got lots of potential other areas. So having a centralized kind of certification list might be an interesting idea. Maybe we'll do that. Financial insights in Excel. What happened to my thing? Comms. No, resource element. It's gone. My chat disappeared. Oh no. I was using it to play. Oh my God, did I delete the chat? That's crazy. Microsoft-based data platforms. Oh, this is it. Don't know what happened there. Sorry. Okay. Where were we up to? Yes, financial stuff. We're going to be using Xero for that. Personal satisfaction and growth. Survey tools. So here's one that's not listed. So we've got a gap here. We're not doing surveys. So could we get some job satisfaction survey type stuff? So that's an interesting thing. Potential gaps. Data integration. Consider using Azure Data Factory. Yeah, okay. So it's starting to talk about gaps in tools for actually getting the data out. That's fine. Tracking professional development using an LMS. Using forms or something like that for personal satisfaction, which is fair enough. Data health monitoring. I don't know how you would potentially do that. You would, like, that'd be part of maybe of a part of a data platform, I guess. Yeah. So is the BI consultant the person who's operating the data platform in this use case? I think they're just the person that kind of builds this stuff. Is they're project workers. They're not necessarily, well, they will be in some circumstances operating these things as well, but I see those as two separate user personas. One is the guy who built it, and two is the person who operates it. Because often in the consulting world, we're going to be handing that back over to the customer. Interesting. All right. What next? So we have now created a persona. We've understood kind of what they're trying to do in terms of our data platform, what the sorts of things that they could potentially use. And we have a pretty good idea of where that data is going to come from for particular areas. So we're now starting to get this comprehensive view of what those requirements are going to be. This is a much better way to get those requirements, by the way, instead of having the person, Jordan, tell you, right? Because Jordan's going to be like, oh, yeah, I could maybe use some, task management tracking, but then that doesn't give you a full picture. Anyway, I like this approach. Okay, so if we're going to build, let's say we're going to build some stuff out of Microsoft Project and Azure DevOps, which means that we'll need to build a data platform that can pull data from Microsoft Project, can pull data from Azure DevOps. We'll stick that in our lake, and then we'll start looking at how we need to transform it to be able to build this specific solution for Jordan. Now, and then assuming we're already pulling out project and DevOps stuff, then we'll potentially, we'll look at other personas and we'll potentially be able to start building stuff for them. That makes sense. Do I want to start with project and DevOps? Why not? Just use the first one and we'll go from there. So our goal at the moment is to build project and task management solution, reporting solution for Jordan, our BI consultant person who works in our BI team with all of that history that we already know. Okay, let's have a look at some architectures. Here's my analytics end-to-end architecture, the kind of standardy one. So in this case, I'll use my super zoom. All right, so I don't have to worry about streaming data. We're not going to be doing any data streaming for this use case, so that's great. Our sources are going to be project and Azure DevOps. I'm going to assume those are both going to be API calls. Azure DevOps is a connector for Power BI. Project, I don't know. Has anyone ever gotten data out of project? It used to be you could pull it out of a database in the back end when you had project online. I've used project online as well. There's project online connectors and there's Azure DevOps connectors. So we might be able to build it as a data flow, pull it into Fabric, into OneLake. Let's see if we can do that piece. So but we need to design our architecture properly first. So we're going to pull some data out of these two areas. We're going to just use our standard Fabric architecture. We're going to pull it out of these areas. We're going to put it in. I wonder if Fabric actually has its own architecture documentation. But anyway, it's pretty much the same as this. We're going to store it in OneLake in raw format. We'll try and transform. Because we need to create facts and dimensions for our timesheet management or whatever it was, time tracking, project and time tracking reporting. So I'll do a little bit of that. Oh goodness, where's my architecture diagram? We'll use notebooks for that. So we're going to do that with Spark. Then we'll pipe that out to a Power BI, data model, and then it'll be ready for analytics. And we'll build some cool reports. Okay. Is there any kind of updating that we might want to do throughout? So say that Jordan gets to the end of the week, they put their time in, and then they need to update their time, they would just go back to DevOps and update their time there, or update their tasks with their time completion stuff in there, right? Okay, or project. So is there going to be any intervention stuff? Is there any write back or? Don't think so. I can't think of any use case where you might overwrite your time unless you're doing something dodgy. Go back and change all your numbers before your performance review. No, can't think of any. Is there any forecasting or cool ML things we could build on this? I guess we could for the macro view, but that's a different use case. This is really just standard operational reporting. There's nothing crazy about this. I think it's good because it's kind of our. We've done this kind of stuff a fair bit, so I think that's what we'll plan to do. How are we going for time? Okay, we'll get this architecture finished. All right, so what should I do my architecture in? Should I use Visio? Why not? This is you can download these architectures in Visio as well. Actually, if you didn't realize, it says download a Visio file. Let's grab it and then we'll update it to be our new architecture. We can use all the cool. Oh, now I want to see if there's fabric architectures. Let's see if we can find some. Architecture. Oh, there we go. Surely there's some demo. Lakehouse end-to-end scenario. Oh, we did this a few weeks ago. These have got architectures in them, do they? The end-to-end scenarios. Oh, yeah. Oh, look at that. Data source is structured data, or it's kind of structured data from thing ingested using a data flow because we think there's standard connectors. It's going to go into our lakehouse. We're going to use notebooks to transform it. We're going to use direct lake to consume it in Power BI. Perfect. Here's our architecture. Don't have to do anything. Can I get this as a Visio? No. Maybe we can talk about our data model then. Cool. All right. So what I want to do now is we're going to focus on this project and task management. I'm going to get it to generate some questions that Jordan might be asking about this particular area, some business questions. Out of the business questions, I'm going to generate a data model. And then from the data model, we'll have a good idea of kind of what our end-to-end data platform needs to do from source systems through to what the Power BI reporting will be. Once you get past data model, the visualization bit's pretty easy, as long as you've got your business questions and stuff. That's my plan anyway. Let's see how we go. Let's focus on project task management. All right, so I said, let's focus on project and task management activities. What are some key business questions that Jordan might ask of the reporting platform? And so I quite like using it. I've mentioned this before, yeah, in Lunch and Learns, is I quite like using it for generating this type of stuff. Key business questions around data related things. It's really good at kind of just giving you some brainstorming some ideas about what you could possibly report on, and you can kind of take it back to people that you're working with and go, hey, I thought of some really cool questions, what about these? And it gives them the opportunity to pick and choose instead of coming up with these questions themselves, which users struggle with that kind of stuff. So so this is a good way to use it as well. All right, so we've got some questions that Jordan could be asking. Project progress and health. What's the current status of all of my ongoing projects? Are there any projects at risk or missing their deadlines? That's a good question. Which projects are on track, behind schedule, or ahead of schedule? That's great. Okay, how are resources being allocated across the different projects? Give or take that one. Which resources are overutilized or underutilized? I'm more interested from my perspective, if I'm Jordan, as this is more if like Jordan's managing projects, which Jordan doesn't do, right? Jordan's working in projects. So I'd probably want to know, am I overutilized or underutilized? So what's my view of this? What's the current workload of each team member? That's potentially useful because then you can kind of say, well, I can see my friend is, having is getting smashed, so I won't take up too much time with them. So I quite like that one. We've got some time tracking and efficiency questions. How much time is being spent on specific tasks or projects? Yep. Which tasks are taking more time than estimated? Is there any repetitive tasks that we could automate? Maybe. I don't know how you'd report that. I guess you could have like task frequency type thing. I don't know. Budget and costs. Any projects going over the allocated budget? Very important question for a BI person. I think they need to be across that, right? So that they can moderate the way that they work based on what's available in terms of the budget, but then also raise it to say, well, like we're here and you're saying you've got this much budget and I just don't think we can do this work in the amount of time. You want to be able to raise those issues as quickly as possible. What's the cost variance between the estimated and actual spend? Interesting. I think that's good for your estimation accuracy as well. So, because a lot of BI consultant people are going to be asked to estimate. And so they say, hey, how long do you think it's going to take you to build this report? And the person says, well, I don't want to estimate. How long's a piece of string? Oh, I can't estimate that. That's ridiculous. But then, but then, but then that, like, well, I'm just going to write a number down. So I'm going to say 2 weeks if you don't tell me anything else. So then you can start to refine, well, okay, well, we said 2 weeks because I didn't provide an estimate, but actually I could have, my guess would have been it was going to be 10 days, or no, 10 days is 2 weeks. It was going to be 5 days and it actually came out at 7 days. So we can refine the way that we actually did that. So I think that's cool. Estimated versus, so is the estimate captured in DevOps? That's an interesting question. How can costs be optimized for future projects? Maybe. Which milestones are coming up for me, and am I prepared to meet them? That's an interesting one. So you could have a report as a part of their report. They could also show their milestones. Your data platform should be able to present that to them, back to them in some way. Even better, if there was a Power Automate that reminded them that their milestones were coming up and that they needed to prepare and gave them information. Now we're starting to get into not just an analytics platform, but also a workflow automation piece that uses the data platform. I really like this. Are any deliverables for completed milestones that have been accepted by the clients? That's good too, because that comes down to invoicing. So it's about whether the clients have also accepted them, because sometimes depending on what your workflow is like, you might have a workflow where you just submit stuff to client and then the client has to approve it, and then you can't invoice it until the client approves that it's ready to go. But you might be working on something else, so you might be able to need to track that with your clients. Are there any pending items or bottlenecks that could delay the deliverables? That's interesting too. But I don't know how you would capture it unless you captured bottlenecked DevOps items. You could potentially mark them somehow that they're bottlenecked. That's interesting. Have there been any issues with the quality of deliverables? Are there any projects complying with set of standards? Anyway, and you get the idea. There's lots of different business questions we could be asking. So we'll need to start to select some of these to build out our data model. Okay, so let's start with project progress and health. What's the current status of ongoing projects? So if we want to know status, so this is where I start to get crazy with my OneNote. Maybe I'll do it on Miro actually. Let's do it on Miro. Miro's more fun. Okay. I'll open Miro over here. And then I'll bring it back when I have a blank slate for us to use. You could use Microsoft Whiteboard, of course, Microsoft, or Miro. Miro's good too. Microsoft Whiteboard is getting pretty good for those of you that haven't checked it out lately. So yeah, don't discount Whiteboard. What is going on here? Miro will not let me log in. Maybe I'll use Whiteboard. Oh no, here we go. Oh God, just completely overtyped my password. It's really not cooperating, this login screen for Miro, sorry. How are we going for time? We're going okay. I want to see if I can get at least to, this is a bit of a accelerated kind of thing, but we don't want to spend too much time. We can always refine things. All right, I'm going to create a new board in a new project. Okay, create a new project. It's going to be called Friday Data Platform Project. And then that will give me a nice blank slate for you to see. All right, here we go. So I've got a new project in Miro called Friday Data Platform. I'm going to create a new board called Data Models. Hopefully that will open a new board. It has. How likely? Pretty likely, since I'm recommending it to everybody right now. All right. I could create a different template. I'm just going to use a blank Miro board. Yeah, I'm sure there's one that's probably pretty. I don't know. Has anyone used Miro for like creating data models? There's probably a decent template somewhere. But anyway, that's okay. I'm going to use sticky notes. Sticky notes are the way to go. Here are some sticky notes. Yoink. Green. Okay, so back to our business questions. What is the current status of ongoing projects? Okay, so someone said status, so we write the word status in a sticky note. And then there's this concept of ongoing projects. So there's project. And then there's project status updates. And this is going to be a different color because that's going to be a fact. Okay, so how did I come to this? Well, they mentioned status, so I know there's going to be some kind of status dimension. And they mentioned project, so I know there's going to be some kind of project dimension, right? Now, if I want to see the relationship between statuses and projects, I need to capture transactionally the updates of project statuses. That's all I've done to get me to this point, right? I'm just thinking about what facts would I need to be able to capture this kind of project status update situation. And then I come back here and I review that against my question. What is the current status of ongoing projects? There's this concept of whether the project is ongoing or not. That's also a status though. So I'm okay with that. I think that if we had a data model that had project status updates with a status project dimension and obviously a date, because it's so we'll put date in because date just always appears, date, not data. Then we could answer that question, right? You don't need anything else to answer that question. Now we're also talking about for Jordan, so we need to know the employee. So if we have the project, the status, the date, and the employee in a transactional table that gives us status updates for the project, then we have a data model that answers that question. I think team is potentially part of employee, but yeah, you could. There's project. Team might be part of also project. You want to probably keep this as simple as possible, but it's going to be different depending on. This is going to depend on subtle things like organizational structure as well. But I'm happy with that for now. We'll continue on and see if team comes out of it. Okay, are there any projects at risk of missing deadlines? So to be at risk of missing a deadline, means your status. What is that? It's about forecasting whether your completion date, so as your start date and your end date of your project, if the forecasted end date of the project is going to miss the what is that, the original end date. So to be able to answer that question, we would need something that captures what was the deadline end date of a project that might live in our project dimension, and then what's the current expected end date. What's our expected end date? So how do we get an expected end date of a project? that's going to be based on how much is left in the project, um, in terms of tasks, and then it's probably just a status. We could potentially just capture these as status update, like as an update in the project dimension. You've just got a current field, which is your original end date, and then you've got the current field, which is your new end date. Would we do it as like a type 2 dimension? Maybe. That would make it kind of like a fact in this process, right? Are we going to just are we just going to say that we capture this in Microsoft Project? I think in Microsoft Project you capture your end dates. I don't know how the update process works in Project though. It's an interesting one. For the purposes of this model, I'm just going to say that it's in the project dimension. So you've got a status of what their current end date is, or what their original end date is, and then what their expected end date is. So you've got your deadline and then your expected end date are two attributes of project in the project dimension, which means I don't need to change my model, right? Because it lives already here. You could start to capture this stuff. Expected end date. I don't know why I keep writing data instead of date. Deadline. Date. And then this becomes like a process question, or like also like a data tools question, right? Is that, can we do this? Is this possible to be able to capture our expected end date and our deadline date in our project dimension? If it's not possible, do we bring it into our data platform and then transform it so that it is in the project dimension as a part of our transform layer? Or is there something else we need to do? Do we capture it some completely different way? But for now, let's just do that. If this was a real company, we'd be able to answer those questions, but it's not. But we can have a look at project and see if that works. Which projects are on track, behind schedule, or ahead of schedule, which is similar to what's the current status. Again, we've got on track, so this is date versus expected end date. Behind schedule is date versus expected end date at the task level. Or ahead of schedule, again, it's date versus expected end date. So we've got all the things that we need to be able to answer project progress and health type questions. All right, so we can move on to resource allocation. How are resources being allocated? I don't know if I care about this that much as a Jordan. I think I said that when we first looked at it, right? What do we mean by resources? Do we mean resources as in people? I guess it'd be like, what are my current projects? Which is already answered in our data model because we've got employee project relationship here. And so we should be able to then, as a part of we could see what are the current, based on our project status updates, we should be able to see what are the current active projects for every employee. So we can answer that question. Okay. Which resources are overutilized or underutilized? Okay, so what's our definition of overutilized or underutilized? An overutilized resource is someone who has a set number of hours in the week, and then their expected work for that week is over the expected number of available hours for the week. So to be able to do that, we need to know their expected available hours, which wouldn't come out of project, and it's not going to come out of DevOps. It's going to come out of potentially your HR system, or your employee out of like Xero, your payroll system, because your available hours is based on your employment agreement. And, like if you're a part-time person, you're only going to have X number of available hours. And if you're a full-time person, you can have X number of available hours. And then there's going to be stuff taken out of that for meetings and internal stuff. Depends how you manage your business. We're going to say that is it's an attribute of our employee to know their available number of hours per week, but that's going to come from our employee, from our Xero system. So that's going to need to be an attribute of our employee dimension. then our expected number of hours used is going to be part of our project status updates. We're almost at task level now though, because the tasks are going to consume hours. So you're going to have your project tasks, and then each one of those tasks is expected how long it's going to take, and then when it's been scheduled. So this isn't just status updates anymore. We've got a new fact, which is project tasks. And then potentially a new dimension, which is like task. Well, this project task updates. So for our employee task relationship, for each project, we need to know which tasks have been updated for each employee, and then we could be able to count. Okay, well, these are the tasks that are allocated to this particular sprint or week or whatever, and then look at that versus the available hours for the employee, and that'll be able to answer that question. Okay. What is the current workload of the team member? So that's again exactly, this is our task update thing. We should be able to see from our employee how many tasks they've got, away they go, and Robert's your father's brother. Anyway, so we've gone through this process for these first kind of 6 questions, and we've built a draft data model that theoretically will be able to answer those questions. And so we're now starting to coalesce around, okay, here's the data I need to be able to answer that question. And then also the types of transformations, such as these deadline dates and these available hour stuff, the types of transformations we'll need to be able to perform, to be able to make this data model happen, to be able to then answer these business questions. And we're out of time, just like that. I feel like that was a crazy session. Shelley says it was always fun aspect of employee utilization FTE reports. With definition of FTE, we're using 40 hours at 52 weeks. Yeah, everyone who takes annual leave will be under FTE. Yeah, exactly. You've got a lot of consideration. Available hours is not entirely straightforward, but lots of different considerations around what do you mean by available hours, particularly if you're in a consulting environment, because we have internal meetings. So then we, take out, and then what percentage do you want to apply to that? It becomes this really subjective thing. Cool. Well, that's as far as we got in our little data platform this week, but I think we're making progress. We did lots of different interesting things. We created this data persona for our this user archetype persona for Jordan, our BI professional. We had a look at the types of questions Jordan might be asking in their day-to-day work, and then we're starting to build out a data model. Still haven't touched any fabric yet, haven't built a single thing. But we're getting a really comprehensive understanding of what we need to be able to build to meet the needs of that person. So hopefully you got a little bit out of this. Hopefully there's some ideas there or some strategies or some techniques that you hadn't seen before. We'll continue on next week. We'll see how far we can get in terms of building something that actually works. I don't think I'm going to build this whole data platform. There's a lot to it. Maybe I'll do it for my actual company, but but yeah. But yeah, we'll at least get to a point where we build some fun stuff out, and then we'll look at some interesting use cases. I really like that workflow idea. If we can get that, that reminder piece coming out of our data platform as well, I think that's a good way to show that these data platforms can not just be used for analytics use cases. But until then, have a great week. It's a long weekend. It's a Melbourne Cup on Tuesday, so yeah, we get a long weekend here in Melbourne. If you're based in Melbourne, have a great. Well, it's not. It's only a long weekend if you take Monday off, with a lot of people do. If you're taking Monday off, enjoy the long weekend. If you're not taking Monday off, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you get lots of work done. It's a good time to catch up. That's the other thing, because nobody really does any work during these few days. And yeah, we'll see you next week for another exciting edition of Lunch and Learn. But until then, thanks very much. Great to see you all. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye.